Good day and welcome to another episode of Drew's Book Reviews. So today we are continuing on with the Year of the Poe as we continue on in the collected works of Edgar Allan Poe. 3 more stories to tell you about. So if you're interested, stay tuned. That is coming right up. Okay, so Edgar Allan Poe, classic of American literature. This is what we get to talk about today as we continue our series on the Year of the Poe with the collected works of Edgar Allan Poe. So this is fun and exciting because Edgar Allan Poe, he's just a classic and well known for his, kind of dark and scary type stuff, essentially with things like The Raven and The Telltale Heart, mysteries of intrigue within his stories. So this is going to be a fun year of Poe. So we are continuing that series today. Today we've got 3 stories to talk about, basically 2 murder mysteries and 1 just kind of adventure type story. So let's get right into it. And of course, if you haven't seen my original video or my first video in this series, definitely I will have it in the description below. I'll also have it in the cards or tags or whatever annotations, I guess, that they call them. So I'll have it up there as well. But without further ado, let's get into this and let's start with the stories that we have to talk about from Edgar Allan Poe's collected works today. Okay, so the murders in the Rue Morgue. So this is a murder mystery about Poe and his buddy Dupin, who basically analyze the events and the facts behind this mysterious murder that happened in the Rue Morgue. So the story kind of starts out with this description of what happened and what the scene looked like when people from the community came upon it, and it is descriptive. He definitely uses descriptive language in a way that really paints the scene in this very bloody, disturbing scene about how the bodies were laid, how they were found, and the injuries that these bodies had incurred and what happened with them. And it's just this really, really gruesome scene of these 2 murders of people that didn't seem to have any reason to be murdered. There was no known enemies, no acquaintances. There was nothing to indicate that these people had any reason to be victimized by any murder whatsoever. And so Poe and Dupin are basically there analyzing the facts and the witness reports of what happened with this murder and how it happened. And it kind of takes us through the narrative, and it's really kind of fun, Sherlock Holmesian style almost, I would say. It definitely kind of felt like that with respect to the description, the analytics, and the deductions that were being made throughout the analyzing of the events and the witnesses and what they were reporting. So it was kind of a fun way to go about that, and just kind of after it all happened, essentially, let's analyze the facts and see where we're going. So Poe definitely has this writing style that's very, I guess I would say, flowery language in a way, where he's using, these eloquent style words with respect to how he's portraying his stories and his writing. And the murders in the Rue Morgue was just, like, it was gruesome. There's no way around that. But that's typical Poe, right? I mean, you have to expect that there's going to be these gruesome aspects of the story within his writing. And at the end, and I know there's probably going to be a spoiler if you haven't read it, but I mean, Edgar Allan Poe has been around for over a century now. So, go read it and enjoy it for what it is. But at the end of the day, I think that this particular story, Murders in the Rue Morgue, really kind of focuses cautionary tale on the dangers of capturing wild animals as pets or to be sold for entertainment purposes, because the true culprit, the true murderer of the true reason why these people had to die in such a gruesome, terrible way is revealed at the end of the story. Now, I won't tell you what type of animal is involved. You're just going to have to go read the Murders in the Rue Morgue to find out for yourself. But it definitely seems to serve as this kind of cautionary tale of, why we shouldn't just be capturing these wild animals and bringing them into captivity and forcing them to do our bidding kind of thing. And what happens when a wild animal escapes its captivity and wreaks havoc throughout the city. So it was kind of a fun and entertaining read with respect to that and that kind of idea behind that. So that's essentially what we have with the Tales of the Rue Morgue. The Mysteries of Marie Roget. Roget. I don't know, it's a French word. I don't speak French. And half the time I can't pronounce them right, but Roget, Roget, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, this is basically set up as the sequel to The Mysteries of the Rue Morgue. So again, this is another murder mystery tale by Edgar Allan Poe. Much of the tale is set up again in kind of that analytical nature of analyzing the facts of the case, what happened, where it happened, how it could have happened, and who's ultimately to blame for this murder that happened. Now, what most of the story talks about is it focuses on the newspaper clippings and the news reports of the story itself, of what happened. So rather than it being a narrative of this murder victim's tale and story, it's taking a look at the newspaper articles of how things happened and what is reported. In addition to that, the opinion pieces basically of what some newspaper articles think might have happened, others kind of saying, no, that's not right, it couldn't have happened this way. And there's some mystery as to whether this body found was in fact Marie Roget, or whether it was another victim who just happened to look like Marie Roget or of similar physical stature, as the body is found floating in the river and decaying essentially. So again, definitely another one of those Edgar Allan Poe-esque dark, mundane, kind of disturbing, dark themes within the works, but that is to be expected with Poe. That is what he's known for. And honestly, it's kind of what I like about Edgar Allan Poe. I like that kind of darker thematic elements to his story that talks about the darkness within us all kind of thing. So the whole thing is kind of, here's the newspaper articles that have shown both sides of the opinion piece. Let's analyze this, let's talk about this, let's figure out what really happened to Marie Roget and whether or not this was actually hers. What were the events leading up to it and how did she die if this body that was found is actually her? So it's kind of going through that analysis, kind of that Sherlock Holmesian vibe I kind of got from that as well. So that was kind of the sequel essentially to The Murders in the Rue Morgue. And again, another tale of kind of that darkness and murder mystery. So definitely those two were quite enjoyable reads with Edgar Allan Poe's collected works. As far as those two murder mysteries go, you kind of read them together and they kind of form like part one and part two of two murder mysteries essentially, because one is the sequel to the other. So that was kind of fun and enjoyable, and definitely look forward to more tales of macabre or darkness thematic elements within all of us, which Poe is certainly famous for. All right, and the third and final story for today's video about Edgar Allan Poe's collected works is the balloon hoax. So this is kind of a tale of first learning to fly, basically, and the invention of the hot air balloon and the mechanics involved in it. Much of the story, this is the shortest of the three stories, and much of this story really focuses on the description of what this hot air balloon actually looks like and how it functions. So that is where a lot of this story has its focus, and then, or at least half of it, and then the other half, it tells of the adventure of flying across the Atlantic Ocean in this hot air balloon that was created, and the adventures they had and how they coped with the high altitudes and the storms that they had to face as they crossed the Atlantic Ocean. Now, the title is The Balloon Hoax, but there wasn't actually anything within the story itself that seemed to indicate that this was a fake or a hoax itself with respect to the story itself. Like, there's nothing in the tale that suggested that people thought it was a hoax or that tried to debunk the actual events that happened to any great extreme. So, not sure why it would have been referred to as a hoax. I mean, it is a fictional tale, as Edgar Allan Poe's works are, but a lot of it, I kind of get the sense, I haven't actually looked into it, so I don't know, don't quote me on this, but I kind of get the sense a lot of his fictional tales and the way he tells a story are based off or inspired by actual events that have been happening in the world around his time. So it may very well have been that case. But the balloon hoax itself didn't really read like it was a tale that was a hoax. It didn't read like the other ones where there's, you know, kind of point counterpoint and trying to debunk the whole theory, but it just kind of told the story of people traveling and flying across the Atlantic in a hot air balloon. And it was a very short story, and it was certainly interesting and fun to kind of listen to the retelling of this idea or this theme. So that one wasn't really kind of on the dark side. It was definitely not one of the darker tales of Edgar Allan Poe, but definitely still a, you know, kind of fun little adventure once we kind of heard what they had to deal with. Now, a lot of Edgar Allan Poe's writings themselves definitely is more of not so much narrative as simply a recounting or telling of what happened. So it's kind of a style that you really kind of have to get used to. It's not a narrative like you might find in a traditional modern day novel. But, you know, that's the style that he was writing in, you know, a century ago, or more than a century ago now, you know, 150 years or something like that ago. But at the end of the day, like this, the writing style of Poe, you really have to get used to it if you're not into it. And it can be difficult for some people to get into it because it is more of a retelling of the story, not so much a narrative of it. So it's not really character driven so much. It's like me coming home one day and saying, hey, this is what happened today, as opposed to hearing it as the events unfold and happen. So that's kind of an important thing to note when looking at Edgar Allan Poe and his stories and how things work together. But overall, Edgar Allan Poe still has some great stories. And definitely I wouldn't say they're all fantastic, but a lot of them are really good, and I am enjoying it. And I'm really glad that I was able to get this copy of Edgar Allan Poe's collected works, and I'm so looking forward to enjoying this book all year long. It was a wonderful gift from my wife, and I continue to enjoy it, and I will enjoy it for the entire year. So really happy I could do that. So those are just my thoughts here on those 3 stories from the collected works of Edgar Allan Poe. So we've got the Murders in the Rue Morgue, we got the Mystery of Marie Roget, and the Balloon Hoax. And of course, if you're enjoying this series, if you're enjoying hearing me talk about Edgar Allan Poe, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so that you can get notified when I upload the next Edgar Allan Poe video in March, as I am doing 1 per month for the entire year. And of course, you could also follow me on Twitter. You could follow me on Instagram. I'll have my Linktree noted below for you. In addition to that, of course, I do have a Discord if you want to join me there. And of course, I do have a Patreon now, so if you want to support this channel, financially anyway, you can absolutely do so at my Patreon, which will be linked below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you next time on the next episode of Drew's Book Reviews. Until then, keep on reading. Bye.